Morning, Pete, North Las Vegas. Going to be putting one of these together. I wanted to mention something about Aero Precision. I don't know what's going on with them. I've seen some stuff online, but if you go to their online site, a lot of their stuff is out of stock, and it's been out of stock for a long time. I had to go to two different FFLs to try to get all the bits and pieces that I wanted from Aero Precision. They're out of stock for a lot of stuff also. They've tried to restock, and Aero Precision is not giving them any preferential treatment either. A lot of these FFLs around here are having a hard time getting this stuff. So like I said, I don't know what's going on with them, but they're not keeping up with demand. These are all Aero Precision parts. And I thought maybe the first thing we would talk about is the charging handle. Aero Precision makes their charging handles, their mil-spec charging handles, out of 7075 T6, which is correct. And while I'm talking about this a little bit, I thought we'd kind of take a look at it. You can see the machining on this is really good. Nice finish, everything about it. Spring tension seems a little stiff to me. You don't want these loose, but you don't want them so stiff that every time you disengage it from your receiver, it chews into your receiver. But overall, this is a quality looking piece. This is a forging drawing. And you can see up here, they are calling for 775 T6. Now, the reason I mention this is there's some manufacturers that make these out of 6061. And I'll mention one of the manufacturers, that's Luth AR. They advertise this as 6061, which is not the correct material. So you got to kind of watch out for that one. On the forward assist, I've run across 3 different designs. 2 of them are good. One of them is crap. Aero Precision uses the design similar to Colt, where this thumb area and the collar are this is all one piece. And then this one piece is press fit onto the pulse shaft. So this is a nice tight press fit. Then they drill and pin it, just for some insurance, make sure it doesn't come apart. Now, another design which Fulton Armory sells, I think they still do, or maybe it just depends on what you get from them, but they have the other design where the pulse shaft and the thumb area, the button, is all machined as one piece, and then the collar is separate. So they take the collar from front to rear and press it up against the thumb area. And those are not pin and drilled because they don't need to be. Once the collar is press fit onto the one-piece button and shaft collar, once you get it installed, the spring here will keep pressure against the receiver and the collar. So if this collar should come a little bit loose on the shaft, it's not going to come apart unless you lose your mounting pin. And then there's a third type where this is still one piece, similar to this, but they are not drilled and not pinned onto the pulse shaft. They rely on a press fit only. And I've seen a couple of videos where these have come apart. And that third type I'm talking about here, where they do that, they're junk. You don't want to use those. In past years, when I've used Aero Precision, the ejection port cover door kits, I seem to remember this showing up as stainless. It would be shiny. And this kit showed up with a blackened spring. So it might still be stainless, even though it does have some magnetic properties. It could still be stainless, but I kind of lean towards the fact that it's steel. And you can see it had a pretty good tug to it. Now, this one here is definitely steel. For the build I have in mind, like I said, I'm not exactly sure which direction I'm going, but I'm probably going to be using a carry handle. And this is Colt. So I'll show you some things about the Colt here that aren't right. And It seems like in recent years, Colts just sometimes not quite what they used to be. So let me show you what they didn't do right on this. First thing I wanted to check on the carry handle was make sure that the carry handle is at mil-spec dimension. So if you measure from the base of the carry handle to the top here where the sight base rests, mil-spec comes in at 0.835, which this one is measuring just about perfect. Now, there's carry handles out on the market that are commercial spec. And this dimension here is 40 thousandths shorter, and it comes in at 0.795. Wyndham Weaponry used to be famous for this. They would put a commercial spec carry handle on their flat top uppers because they used a standard A2 front sight base instead of the correct F-marked. So the F-marked front sight base is 40 thousandths taller. So you want a mil-spec carry handle for those things to be in perfect alignment as per the design. Now, because Wyndham Weaponry uses a standard A2 front sight base, they went to a commercial spec carry handle, which was 40 thousandths shorter because the standard A2 is 40 thousandths shorter than a flat top. Okay, so that's why all that happened. But because I'll be making a mil-spec carbine rifle using the correct F-marked front sight base, then this is the dimension you want on your carry handle. Anyway, hope all that made sense. So I have quite a few Colt carry handles, and all my other Colts, these thumb nuts for the clamping bar are staked. So when you back this nut off, they'll only go so far, and they won't fall off. But you can see on this particular Colt, somebody at the factory, as soon as I get done screwing on this thing, did not stake the end of the post here. So you spin these back far enough, they fall right off. And this is genuine Colt. Just somebody at the factory just decided not to stake that or forgot to stake it to keep these from backing all the way off. So that's a little bit of a faux pas on this one from Colt. A lot of carry handles will come dinged up in this area here. And a lot of times the burrs and the dings will be protrude into the mounting area of the carry handle. And depending on how often you pull this carry handle off and on your receiver, you're going to start damaging the rail on the receiver where it makes contact. And then the other thing, while you're damaging your receiver, this may not fit flush or perfectly straight or return to zero every time you pull it off and put it back on. It may sit in a slightly different place because of all the burrs and the dings. Now this one here, I've already filed it down. I'm going to try to do a little better close up here. I've already filed it down, and you can see where removing the burrs that protruded in here left an uneven surface. But that's okay. Once the clamping bar is on there, you're not going to see any of that once it's mounted on the receiver. The main goal here was just to get that nice and smooth so that it doesn't chew up your receiver. And this side here didn't seem to get as dinged up, and I think when they're throwing these around at the factory, this is protecting this particular edge. But this one here has a tendency to get kind of beat up at the factory. So before we get too far along with the receiver and putting parts on it, I want to check the bore. And here's the specs on the bore. And if you look here, they want right at 1 inch, you can be 2 thousandths larger as far as the tolerance, but you can't be any smaller. You can see where it's +2 and 0, -0. And now that's for the first inch and roughly 1/8. And then after that, the dimensions open up to +6 thousandths, but you can't be any smaller. So I'm not going to blueprint the whole receiver, but I've measured the the opening here to see where we're at. And it's a little bit on the tight side. It's coming in at 0.999, which is fine. Most barrel extensions are, 0.998, something like that. So we'll have plenty of room. If we don't, we can, heat this up and get our barrel in there. So it'll be a nice snug fit. I'll be using a mil spec barrel nut, and we're just going to spin this on here and see how that fits on. Okay, so the barrel nut went on very nice. There's no real looseness or anything. It's snug, but it spins freely. So I got this from Fulton Armory, the barrel nut. So we'll take a look at the tolerances for the upper receiver lugs, front versus rear. Now, if you look closely, you'll see on the rear that from front to back or back to front, however you want to say it, that hole is slightly elongated because the hole is slightly bigger from front to rear or rear to front. And it should come in right about 1/4 inch from top to bottom. And your front lug will be perfectly round. So we'll take a look at the dimensions up here on the computer. And you can see right there, 1/4 inch plus 2 minus 0. And then all these numbers here are kind of explaining the elongation. And then up here, we're running 1/4 inch, a little bit tighter. You're allowed to go +1 minus 0. Now, some of these numbers I'm not overly concerned with. A lot of times it just depends on how things fit together. Like these could be slightly out of spec, and so long as your pins are slightly out of spec, and everything lines up to where, things are still snug and tight, then we don't worry too much about the numbers. But I'll put these pins in, and we'll see how they fit. And like I said, we're not overly concerned with the numbers. So long as the pins go in and they fit snug, then we're not too worried about it. So the front pivot is very snug. I mean, it barely moves at all. So that's good. That's what we want. Like I'm trying to move that, and it's barely moving at all. Now the back one, like I said, because of the elongation front to rear, if I move it front to rear, you'll see a little bit in there. If I go up and down, very little movement. That's how it should be. So the rear takedown pin comes in about 248. That's good. And the front pivot pin also comes in at exactly 248. Okay, you want to make sure your E clip or C clip or SIR clip, whatever you want to call that thing, is properly located on the shaft. And I like to get it started to where it's almost all the way through. And when I position the spring, I'll get the spring arm here located up against the receiver where it goes. Kind of like so, except the arm will be right up against the receiver. And then it's just easier for me to twist the big end than trying to do it the other way. I've seen some people where they'll put the rod in here and get this located where they want it, and then they twist the small end, and it's just harder for me to do it that way. Not sure what's going on with YouTube anymore, how much they let you show, but I'm going to do this off camera because even doing it my way, which I think is a little bit easier for me, it's still juggling feathers in a hurricane. So let me get this thing installed real quick. Okay, so that's the proper orientation. So I built quite a few ARs. I've never had a problem with the forward assist installing the pin from the bottom first and then knocking the pin up. The only time I've ever had a problem, I was putting together an A2 fixed carry handle, and it was just easier to try to put a block of wood under here, and I thought I would tap it in from the top. And things got misaligned. The pin wouldn't line up with the bottom hole. I don't know if it was a coincidence. I don't know if there's something going on with the pin. Maybe I didn't have my pawl aligned just right. But the only time I had problems was when I tried to put that pin in from the top. So ever since then, I've put them in from the bottom, and I've never had a problem that way. So let me get this thing tapped in, and this video is about over. Okay, so this part here, I'm not sure how much it matters, but I don't know if you can tell from the camera, but I put the slot of the roll pin facing in this way. And what that does is it gets the slot inside the bore and gets that away from the forward assist, and just provides a smoother surface, in my opinion, possibly. Like I said, it may not really matter. I don't know, but that's just the way I've always done it, is to get that slot facing in about that direction. If you're new to the AR platform, when you install these, you can see the hook of the pawl. That faces towards your bolt carrier. So this is the orientation that it's going to go. It's going to go in here like so. Okay, I got it tapped into where it's captured. And we'll just use the correct roll pin punch to get it tapped in the rest of the way. So I just get the pin in on the bottom until it's flush. And then wherever it ends up on the top, like, it doesn't have to come all the way out and be perfectly flush with the top. You can see here, it's just ever so slightly recessed. And that's how I do them. If you want to pound that in a little bit further to try to get this, perfectly centered, or get this more towards flush on this side, you're probably going to risk damaging or scarring up, or getting some shiny metal on your receiver. So usually once they're flush, I stop. Okay, there's our assist. Comes all the way into the bore. Retracts fully. Should work. Okay, everything went according to plan. No scratches, dents, dings. This thing came like perfect from Aero Precision. I don't know if I mentioned it at the beginning of the video, but there's just no blemishes, no pitting. The finish is really good. Everything seems to have fit together very nicely. I've already test fit this to the lower. It's nice and tight. There's no wobble. This is the lower I'll be using. I put this together years ago on another build, and I ended up changing some things on the other build. So I ended up with this extra lower. I may upgrade the trigger, but I believe I used a CMMG trigger on this, and it's for a mil spec. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. The only thing that kind of bugs me a little bit is this nitrided castle nut. I don't like that. I'm probably going to go with more of a phosphate and swap that thing out. But anyway, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to go with for a barrel. I'm looking at a mid-length, and I've been having trouble finding a phosphate chrome-lined 18-inch, which is what I was considering, with a mid-length gas system. I did find some stainless barrels from some reputable manufacturers, but I'm having a real hard time finding a phosphate chrome-lined mid-length gas system. So I may end up going with stainless on this. I don't know. Anyway, when I figure out what I'm doing with the barrel, I'll be back. Pete, North Las Vegas, over and out. Hope you enjoyed the video. Later.